stud press service. It was so foul. It was really in the toilet. And yes, and that video showed him literally standing before bodies on the ground, bodies that he claimed were the corpses of his fighters that had died, fresh corpses, fresh deaths due to the lack of support from Moscow. So Prigozhin is nothing but someone who knows how to heighten the dramatic effect, knows how to ring an alarm bell, and knows how to get people to take notice when he wants them to, which is what he's doing right now.
Doug, when it comes to the military situation in Ukraine this Friday, just where are we at?
Not great. We know that Vladimir Putin obviously is braced for this expected Ukrainian counteroffensive. Now, obviously, it's business as usual from the official Kremlin standpoint. Everything's great there. You know, they're recruiting manpower. They're getting the munitions that they need. The reality is, as we've heard in the past 24 hours, is the top U.S. intelligence official, Avril Haines, the director of national intelligence. She was before the U.S. Senate testifying. She basically says that Putin lacks manpower. He lacks the weapons he needs, and it is that reason alone why Russia is unlikely to be able to mount any significant offensive this year. Even a modest offensive is going to be very difficult given the problems that they've had with the mobilizations.
WESN.
This is 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Welcome to the program. In December 2021, the Progressive Development Patriots, led by Watson Duke, won the Tobago House of Assembly elections, taking 14 of the 15 electoral districts in the makeup of the Assembly. Farley Augustin became Chief Secretary, with the party leader, Mr. Duke, standing down. 1 year later, December 2022, 14 of those elected members resigned from the PDP and registered as independents. They have been seeking to form a new party, leaving Mr. Duke standing alone. There have been calls for a return to the polls, but Mr. Augustin has so far resisted this, including telling the country's Prime Minister to mind his own business when he made a suggestion a couple of weeks ago. The PNM minority in the Assembly has recently remarked on what it has called the Great Deception on the part of the now independent members in the THA administration. Petal Daniel Benoit is a minority councillor in the Assembly, a member of the PNM team. She has agreed to talk with us about these and related developments on this edition of the program. Good to see you, ma'am. Thanks for coming on.
It's good to be here again. Thank you so much, Andy.
All right.
It's good to be on your program again.
All right, thank you very much. Well, let's talk a little bit about what the situation is in the island generally as we speak on this day.
So the situation is one where we have a scene where coming into office, as you would have indicated, in 2021, the current Chief Secretary, we have heard him and we have seen him speaking about the fact that they would have won the election and we will not see them today in one color and tomorrow in another. We won't see them appearing as the PDP today and appearing with a red jersey on the PNM platform. We won't see them as PDP today or wearing black today, and tomorrow we see them wearing another color. And fast forward now to 2023, we would have seen where there was a fallout with the PDP and Mr. Duke and Chief Secretary Farley and his team. We have a scene where they called themselves independents. Then we have seen where the independents are now trying to organize themselves into a political vehicle, and they have called themselves the TPP, Tobago People's Party. And a lot of persons in Tobago are seeing this as a betrayal on the electorate. And there's a level of fraud on the electorate as well, because what you have said, you have not done. You have made certain commitments, you have made certain promises, and as far as the people of Tobago are seeing, those promises and those commitments are currently not being kept. So there's a level of disenchantment, there is a level of mistrust, and persons are saying it is time that we return to the polls so that a fresh mandate can be given to lead Tobago.
All right, so can you tell us a little bit about some of the promises and the commitments that that they made coming into office, and probably in office for the year before the separation came from the PDP? What are some of those things that people were led to expect?
So they came on a mantra of let's fix this. They promised that some of the things that the PNM would have done under the past administration, they will not right. They promised that they will give an ex gratia payment to all employees, to Tobagonians, to the THA. To date, we have seen that that is not materialize, and they would have quantified that promise in terms of the ex gratia payment. I think it was $10,000 or something like that to each employee, and it was promised that it will be paid by December. I think it was December, at the end of December 2021, when the chief secretary was sworn in, and the questions were asked. It extended to January, and then it extended until the end of the fiscal year 2022. It extended to January 2023. Now we are in May of 2023, and today we have not seen the ex gratia payments being made. Promises would have made to deal with bread and butter issues. Now we are seeing where, on a very regular basis, employees, particularly daily paid employees within the Tobago House of Assembly, are being paid late. We would have heard very recently at the Division of Food Production, over 3 or 4 fortnights persons have worked and they have gone unpaid. We would have heard certain comments as well from the Division of Infrastructure, again, they're daily paid workers, where several fortnights would have passed and they have remained unpaid. Even at the Office of the Minority, last month we would have had an instance where members of staff of the Office of the Minority would have gone unpaid for over 2 months, and we would have had to use diplomatic means speaking to all the parties involved, and there was no forthcoming in terms of the payment on the staff, and we would have had to go to the public, use the public platform to express what has been happening at the Office of the Minority. So we have seen where a number of their promises have not been kept.
When you say
in terms of...
Go ahead, finish the point.
No, what I was additionally as well, in terms of transparency and accountability, they promised greater transparency and accountability, and we would have seen where months at a time, no post-executive council news briefing, we are seeing where questions are asked in the House, and there are a number of reasons why the administration secretaries are not responding into the questions of the minority, and this cannot be viewed as increased or improved accountability and transparency.
All right, so when you talked earlier about making commitments to pay people, was that part of would you say, the fact that they had been claiming, according to some of the associates, that they have not been getting forwarded funds from the administration in Trinidad? Or when they made those commitments to make these payments, was it your understanding, was it your side's understanding that that would have come from funds that they thought they had in hand, or they led the people in Tobago to think that they had in hand?
Well, I am not sure on what basis those claims were made. And with any prudent government and with any prudent party, you would hope that the promises that have been made will take all the factors into consideration to materialize or to get the promises materialized. One of the things that we would have seen is where students in Jamaica, UWI students who have been in receipt of assistance by the THA, they would have reached out to the media and indicated that they were not paid, the school fees were not paid for this semester. And they would have spoken to the Chief Secretary while he was in Jamaica. They would have spoken to other officials at the division about what was transpiring and then non-payment of school fees. It would have reached a point where the university indicated that they were not able to write exams, their final exams, if the school fees were not paid. Their room and boarding were in jeopardy. And when the Secretary of Education was contacted, she indicated that funds were not being received and this program is under development. But Andy, I have before me documents, monthly budget report from the Tobago House of Assembly, which is laid at the Assembly Legislature at our plenary sittings. We have from taking particular this fiscal year 2023, which started in October, and we are seeing in October where a request on the development program was made for the sum of $75 million from the Ministry of Finance. In October, we would have seen where releases from the ministry to the tune of 26 million was received. And in November, we would have seen the full amount that was requested of 75 million being received in November. We have not received reports for January to April, the current period. But based on what we have before us, we would have seen that the request that was made by the Tobago House of Assembly was received. So in December, all of the 75 million requested was received. We would have also heard from the Chief Secretary upon coming into office that they are experiencing, and he was boasting that they are receiving monies 2 and 3 months in advance, where the past administration was receiving the funding monthly. We have also seen where over the past 5 most recent allocations, this assembly has received the highest parliamentary allocation in our recent past. So I am unsure what is happening with this administration, and it appears as if they are unable to manage prudently. It appears as if the priorities of this administration seem not to be the priorities of the people, but one that further their own self-interest and that of their family and friends.
Okay, I want to stay with the question of the allegations about failures to pay, and there's another a line item there that your side is looking at, failure to pay the creatives after people performed in one function or another, one set of activities or another.
Yes, Andy. So part of our tourism product in Tobago, we have a number of festivals and activities. And we would have seen, again, coming into office of this administration, we had the October Carnival, we also had the February Carnival, and of course, very recently concluded, we have our Tobago Jazz Experience, the return. We are hearing that persons, creative artists, have been unpaid for the October Carnival in 2022. We would have filed a question in the House in regards to payments, and based on the response on the minority side, we believe that the response was inadequate. And when I say inadequate, because the secretary, in terms of the October Carnival, would have indicated that there was a budget of 17 million, I think. Upon conclusion of the October Carnival, the secretary again returned to the public through a press conference and indicated that the expenditure was less than what was budgeted for. And I think she indicated that the expenditure was in the vicinity of, let's say, $13 million. So we, the minority, would have filed a question in the House requesting information on the expenditure for the October Carnival. Based on what we received, the expenditure was in the vicinity of approximately $7 to $8 million. So we are wondering, the additional expenditure, how is that being accounted for? Because there's a difference between the 13 and the 7 that was presented to the minority by way of response to questions. We would have also filed because there were a lot of complaints, again, by mass band leaders, by judges, by a lot of persons who would have participated in the February 2023 Carnival. So in light of that, as a minority, acting on behalf of the people, we would have filed a question requesting information about payments to Carnival. That question came up at the last sitting, and the question was deferred. And we have seen very recently a press release from the Tobago Festivals Commission indicating where payments will commence. So we are in May of 2023. Carnival was February, and we are seeing that payments either now are being paid or have remained unpaid. I am unsure whether or not any payments have been made for the recently concluded Jazz 2023, which was held last month. So with all the activities, with all the festivals that has been happening on the island, there has been cries from the creatives that they are either not paid on time or they have not been paid to date.
All right, we're going to take a break. Stay with us. We're talking with Ms. Petal Daniel Benoit, Minority Council in the Tobago House of Assembly, about the developments that have been taking place there since the PDP came in there with 14 out of 15 seats. What has happened in the interim? Stay with us. This is 10 Questions here on WESN.
Artists you'll meet. The sounds will astonish you. Superb voices, new artists, simply refreshing. Celebrate amazing. May 27th, North Coast Jazz and Heritage Festival, Festival Grounds Blanchishes. Born here, played here. Tickets available at Crosby's, Extra Foods Endeavour, Shogunas Main Road, Sangre Grande, Arima, Grand Bazaar, Mart's Liquor Mart, Diego Martin, Kenny's Sports Outlets, Athletes by the Park, and WESN.
With society plagued by a host of issues, with debates surrounding our urgent concerns falling short, with questions of our future not always being answered,
the conversation continues. Join me, Kemuel Pascal, as the voice of the youth comes to life. We will confront the controversial topics of today's world to gain answers that are key for a better tomorrow. One and One with me, Kemuel Pascal. Wednesdays at 10 a.m. Only on WESN, Content Capital.
Every word, every line, every paragraph depicts a real moment in someone's life. A father, a sister, a mother, a brother. We at Newsday are dedicated to you, the people, and through independent, unwavering journalism, strive to always bring your stories to life. Because your stories are more than just words. Newsday, independent and credible.
Knowing how to tell authentic is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Find it, match it, search it. Step 1. Find the style number on the tag. Step 2. Match the style number inside the jersey with the number on the tag. Step 3. Search it. A quick Google search of the style number will verify the jersey is authentic when the search results match the jersey being searched. Don't be fooled by counterfeit jerseys. Before you buy, remember to find it, match it, search it.
Fan Zone, 2 locations nationwide. Center City Mall, Chaguanas and Movietown, Port of Spain. Nationwide delivery available.
Program, this is 10 questions. My guest is Ms. Petal Daniel Benoit, Minority Councillor in the Tobago House of Assembly. They are calling it the Great Deception, the performance or the absence thereof of the incumbents led by Farley Augustine, formerly the PPP.
Yes. Most definitely. And you would have asked the question earlier and it came to mind that one of the promises, and I think this is a very significant, where it was indicated that you will not be sent home. No one will lose their contracts. No one will lose their tenure of service. And upon coming to office, you see a 180 degree on that promise. And we would have seen where a number of departments were dismantled. All the employees within those departments were sent home. Persons were placed on the breadline, not able to adequately take care of their families. Very recently, we would have seen where a resident would have written to the minority leader expressing, her pain and her hurt with being sent home from the CPEP program, not being able to take care of her family. She's a single parent. Her children had to be split up because her inability to take care of them. And, it's just a cry of hurt and pain. And they were voted overwhelmingly because people trusted what they said is what they would have done. And when they came into office, we see the opposite happening. And it is quite sad that in governance, we see where the color of your jersey is dependent on whether or not you benefit from the opportunities that are available in Tobago by the Tobago House of Assembly.
What is your sense, and that of other people of similar persuasion, about this as it affects people on the ground in Tobago? What are people saying, and to what extent you can gauge from that how people want to respond to that?
So some persons are very anxious because they feel that if they speak up, they will be victimized. We would have seen where contractors were blacklisted under the guise of this audit report. So you hear all the time that persons are afraid and they are anxious because their contracts are coming for renewal, and they are wondering whether or not those contracts will be renewed, notwithstanding that they have been engaged with the Tobago House of Assembly over a number of years. we are also hearing on the ground where persons are having buyer's remorse because coming into office there were such high expectations, and now we are seeing poor governance, poor leadership, lack of transparency and accountability, not keeping promises. So persons are having mixed feelings, and we are also hearing now with the transition from PDP to independence to now TPP, that persons are feeling hoodwinked because it appears as if this administration would have rode into governance on the backs of the PDP, and now they have disregarded all the, I would say, the tenets of the PDP, and now have transformed into something new. So you see a level of mistrust, you see a level of anxiousness and persons being afraid for whether or not their contracts will be renewed and whether or not they will continue to be able to sustain their families. And as well, you are seeing some level of buyer's remorse and disappointment with the choice that they would have.
Yeah, and you think it's strong enough for people to demonstrate their dissatisfaction whenever fresh elections are called?
I believe that it is strong enough that their dissatisfaction may be felt at the polls. So as an organization, the People's National Movement, we are preparing ourselves, we are doing the work on the ground, and we are speaking to the people and preparing ourselves to be the alternative whenever the election bell is rung and we are to return to the polls. So we are preparing ourselves right now for that eventuality.
Yeah, and to what extent do you think there are some people who may have not been, despite the overwhelming turnout in support of the PDP in 2021, that there were people who had misgivings for one reason or the other, had insight into the possibility that knowing Mr. Duke, as some people claim they do, and given his track record in other fields of endeavor, there was controversy always surrounding what he was involved in, that there were people who had a sort of sixth sense as to what is playing out now, that would have been inevitable.
Of course, because if you recall and you go back to the platforms of the PNM in particular, all the signals were sent, all the warnings, the then political leader as well as the current political leader, and most of the platform speakers would have outlined and indicated all the misgivings that were happening at the time with Mr. Duke, and they were forewarned. But I guess persons at the time, the electorate, thought that it was time for change, and there was an overwhelming voice in terms of 21 years of the People's National Movement, and maybe it's time to give someone else an opportunity. And the electorate voted overwhelmingly at the time for the Progressive Democratic Patriots. And we are seeing now that persons are complaining that it may have been an exchange, but when you compare, there's no comparison that relates to the current administration and the past administration. So again, persons are having some level of buyer's remorse and regret for the decision that they would have made. And you're hearing a lot of calls saying, no, we may have just left the PNM in office, because the PNM, the things that are currently transpiring in Tobago as it relates to governance and this administration, they won't happen under the People's National Movement administration.
Yeah. Let's go back a little bit to the elections or the formation of this party, because Mr. Augustine had put out, he and his team had put out statements talking about the formation of this new party, the announcement of it, and when people gathered, well, we saw what happened. The thing didn't happen then, and he tried to rationalize it in some kind of way. That adds to the stock of the issues where people see that people have come to the conclusion that there is much happening there that ought not to be happening, and there's a lot that is not happening that should be happening.
Correct, because we saw a big ad on media, social media and mainstream media, that this new party will be launched. And that is what the advertisement said, a party will be launched. So the media showed up at the venue and at the prescribed time, and they were told that they could not participate or enter into the discussions of the party. And a number of reasons were given why the media could not participate in the activities of the launch. Then the chief secretary again would have come out and he would have indicated that it's not really a launch, but they are organizing themselves to have a launch because they did not have a name. There were at the time, I think it was 5 options to which they will select one name. They did not yet have a symbol. I think they also did not have a color. So what was advertised as a launch was indeed not a launch, but them organizing themselves as a new political vehicle. And it's either you're pregnant, Andy, or you're not pregnant. So you can't, or you ought not to say that you are having a launch when the fact is that it's not a launch. So again, you know, what is sold and when you purchase the product is totally adverse, or what is sold is not the product that is sold to you. When you receive the product, that is not the product that you would have purchased. So again, so we would have seen where they had a second meeting and the name TPP was voted upon by the majority. I have not heard what is the color, nor what is the symbol of this new political entity.
All right, we have to go, but let me just ask you a yes or no on this. You say, you'd said it a couple of times, that about buyer's remorse. Do you think that is a prevailing sentiment in Tobago as we speak?
I would say yes.
Thank you very much, Petal Daniel Benoit, Minority Councillor in the Tobago House of Assembly. The Great Deception, that's what they're calling what has been taking place between the elections into office of the PDP, and it's become now another party within 2 years. Thank you very much. This has been 10 Questions. I'm Andy Johnson. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.